Welcome to True Echo, where real strength echoes louder than words. Today's story takes us deep inside a martial arts dojo, where a silent black woman was mocked and underestimated, until she revealed a secret that silenced the entire gym. It's a tale of prejudice, poise, and poetic justice you won't forget. This isn't just a fight. It's a reckoning. Stay with us. The glass door to Master Kim's martial arts academy groaned as Rebecca Johnson pushed it open. Her old sneakers squeaked faintly against the spotless, matted floors. The air inside was thick with the scent of sweat, eucalyptus, and a fierce determination that always hit her like a wave. She came here every week, just to pick up her daughter Maya after class. But today, something felt different. Her eyes scanned the expansive dojo. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a pale glow across rows of young students practicing their drills. Key eyes echoed across the room as feet stomped and fists flew. Rebecca's eyes landed on her daughter, a wiry 16-year-old with sharp eyes and a steady stance. Maya was fully immersed in a combo sequence, her face flushed from exertion, her kicks sharp and focused. A tiny smile tugged at the corners of Rebecca's lips. Her daughter had grown so much. Not just physically, but in confidence. "Mom!" Maya called out mid-break, her voice bright and excited as she waved from the far end of the room. Rebecca waved back softly, her ponytail brushing her cheek as she settled on the bench against the wall. She wore a plain gray t-shirt and faded black sweatpants. No makeup, no accessories. She blended in, on purpose. Rebecca wasn't here to stand out. She was here for Maya. But before she could unlock her phone, a harsh voice cracked across the room like a whip. "Jackson. That kick was pathetic. Are you trying to lull your opponent to sleep?" Rebecca's head snapped up. There he was, Tyler Griffin. The head instructor. Tall. Muscular. Clad in a flawless white gi with a black belt tied too tightly, like it held his ego together. His tone was clipped, sharp. The young black boy he'd just yelled at, maybe 12, 13 at most, bowed his head in shame and repeated the kick. Even from across the room, Rebecca could see the slump in his shoulders. And yet, when a white student next to him botched the same move, Tyler merely chuckled and said, "It's okay, Evan. Keep trying." The injustice stung like a slap. Rebecca exhaled slowly, steadying her jaw. She'd seen this before. Tyler never said anything overtly racist, but the way he corrected, the way he rewarded effort, the pattern was impossible to ignore. Subtle but clear. Condescending glances. Patronizing smiles. Biased discipline. Rebecca had grown used to staying quiet. Enduring. But lately, it was getting harder. A pair of white mothers whispered nearby. One said, "Coach Griffin pushes hard, but he gets results. His students earn belts faster than anywhere else." The other added, more softly, "I don't know. My son says he feels like Coach treats the white kids differently than the others." Rebecca said nothing. But she heard everything. "Take your time, sweetheart," she called to Maya as her daughter returned to practice. Her voice was calm, but inside her heart beat a war drum. It wasn't just today. Over the past year, she had watched Maya push herself beyond exhaustion trying to earn the same respect other students were handed freely. Rebecca watched, eyes narrowed, as Tyler paced between students like a lion surveying a flock of sheep. Her gaze hardened when she saw him scoff at Maya's roundhouse kick, muttering something under his breath. Maya caught it too. Her confidence faltered just a hair. That was it. Rebecca knew she couldn't just sit on the sidelines anymore. Later that evening, back home, Maya didn't say much at dinner. Rebecca could see it, the distant stare, the twitch in her jaw. "Was class okay?" she asked, gently. Maya paused. "Coach said I was wasting everyone's time." She pushed her food around her plate. "But I've been practicing every night." Rebecca's throat tightened. She reached across the table and placed her hand over Maya's. "You are strong, baby. Don't let anyone, not even someone with a black belt, tell you otherwise." Maya looked up. "You really think so?" Rebecca smiled softly. "I know so." But deep down, something else stirred in Rebecca, something dangerous. It had been buried for years. Something she thought she'd buried for good. Something born from muscle memory, from blood, from pain, and from victory. The storm within her was waking up. Rebecca arrived earlier than usual the next day. She took her seat in the far back corner of the dojo, hidden behind a row of parents. From her vantage point, she had a clear view of the entire training floor, and of Tyler Griffin. She wasn't just here to pick Maya up. Not today. Today, she was watching. Studying. The class started with warm-ups, then quickly moved into advanced drills. Tyler was in his element, barking instructions, correcting stances, pushing students hard. But Rebecca wasn't looking at what he said. She watched how he said it. Who he praised. Who he ridiculed. It didn't take long to see it again. Jackson, the same black boy from the day before, struggled with a jumping sidekick. Tyler's voice thundered across the mats. "Jackson, are you asleep? Again. Or stand there until the sun sets." Jackson winced and tried again, his small frame straining with effort. But just feet away, Evan stumbled through the same sequence, and Tyler smiled, patted his shoulder, and said, "You're getting there. Nice form." Rebecca's jaw clenched. Then came Maya's turn. Her daughter moved into her sequence, sharp jab, pivot, high kick. A slight wobble on landing. Barely noticeable. "Enough, Maya!" Tyler shouted. "You expect a green belt with that mess? Embarrassing." Maya froze, her face falling. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She just nodded and tried again. But Rebecca saw the flicker of pain in her eyes. That quiet hurt every parent knows. Rebecca's hands curled into fists under her coat. She wasn't the type to make a scene. But she wasn't made of stone either. Parents nearby whispered, some chuckled under their breath, others simply nodded, too afraid or indifferent to acknowledge the unfairness. One black mother, seated alone, looked like she was holding back tears as her son was scolded just moments later for something trivial. Rebecca turned her eyes back to Tyler. She watched the gleam in his eye when he belittled Maya. The smugness. The absolute certainty that no one would call him out. And that was when she knew. He didn't think anyone would challenge him. But Rebecca wasn't just anyone. Not always. Later that night, as she walked Maya out of the dojo, Tyler's voice cut across the room with casual arrogance. "See you tomorrow, Maya. Maybe show up ready, this time." Rebecca didn't respond. But she felt his eyes trailing them again like a dare. At home, Maya was quiet. Rebecca made her favorite dinner. They watched a movie. Laughed at silly lines. But beneath the surface, something in both of them had shifted. Unspoken, but real. At midnight, Rebecca sat alone at the kitchen table. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in the room. Her hands trembled as she reached into the bottom drawer of an old cabinet and pulled out a small black box. Inside was a folded photo, 2 kids, grinning wide. Rebecca and her younger brother Marcus. Next to it lay a silver and black MMA championship belt, faded but unmistakable. Rebecca Williams. Once known as Silent Storm. 3-time undefeated MMA world champion. She hadn't spoken that name in nearly a decade. Not since the night Marcus died. The memory hit her like a punch to the ribs. Rain hammering the windows. Her phone buzzing just before the biggest fight of her life. Marcus's voice, light and teasing. "I'm on my way, sis. Don't worry. You've got this. You always do. He never made it. A car crash. One moment, everything had purpose. The next, it all shattered. She never stepped into the ring again. She vanished. Changed her name. Became someone else. But now, someone had called her out. Someone had mocked not just her, but her daughter. Her family. Her legacy. Rebecca closed the box, stood up, and stared at her reflection in the darkened window. The woman in the glass wasn't meek. Wasn't broken. She was still a storm. Quiet. Cold. Precise. Tomorrow, she'd remind the world exactly who she was. The next day arrived with the intensity of a brewing storm. Word of the match had spread like wildfire through Master Kim's academy. Students whispered in the locker rooms, parents exchanged hushed speculation in the lobby, and by the time 5 p.m. rolled around, the dojo was packed. Every corner of the mat-lined hall was filled with expectant faces, some curious, others skeptical, and a few barely hiding their amusement. At the center stood Tyler Griffin, arms crossed, his black belt gleaming like a trophy. His smirk was wider than ever. He fed off the crowd's energy, completely confident that today would be just another notch in his belt. Another moment where he would remind everyone of his dominance. And standing across from him, Rebecca Johnson. She wore no GI. No belt. Just her usual gray t-shirt, black sweatpants, and a steady calm that unnerved more people than they realized. Tyler clapped once, drawing the attention of everyone present. As promised, he announced, voice booming, we're going to demonstrate the difference between a trained martial artist and, well, someone who just watches kung fu movies. Laughter trickled through the crowd. Mostly from the white parents. Rebecca said nothing. She walked slowly toward the center of the mat, her footsteps deliberate. Her eyes never leaving Tyler's. He tilted his head. No last-minute nerves, Miss Johnson. You still want to go through with this? She gave a single nod. Tyler shrugged dramatically. Fine. Let's make this quick then. I have a real class to teach afterward. He bowed mockingly. Rebecca bowed in return, properly, respectfully. A quiet murmur of surprise ran through the audience. She knew the etiquette. The ritual. The rhythm of the fight. They didn't know it yet. But they were about to witness the impossible. Tyler moved first, as expected. A flashy spin kick, meant more to show off than make contact. Rebecca leaned back slightly. Just enough to let it breeze past her. Gasps. Tyler didn't slow. He peppered her with feints and wide punches, always pulling back just before contact. Rebecca remained calm. Still. She sidestepped each move with such subtle grace, it was almost as if she were gliding. What's the matter? Tyler called, chuckling. Cat got your fists. Rebecca replied in a quiet, steady voice. I thought this was a demonstration. I'm still waiting to be impressed. His eyes flashed. The crowd shifted. Nervous titters. Some students of color leaned forward, eyes wide. Tyler attacked again, faster, more aggressive this time. But Rebecca moved like smoke, no wasted motion. No fear. Just complete control. He growled, throwing a hook that she avoided by barely shifting her weight. His punch sliced through empty air. She didn't even blink. Fight back, he barked, his ego starting to fray. Rebecca's answer was silence. But her silence was louder than anything he'd ever heard. The parents who had laughed earlier. Now they sat stiffly. Watching. Unsure of what they were seeing. The ones who once whispered about Rebecca's plainness, now couldn't take their eyes off her. Because it was becoming clear, this wasn't luck. It was skill. Refined. Masterful. Ruthless in its restraint. Each time Tyler overextended, each time he lunged too far, the tension in the room grew thicker. Sweat dripped from his brow. His breathing turned ragged. And Rebecca? She hadn't even broken a sweat. She hadn't thrown a single strike. But she was winning. With every dodge. With every glance. She was unraveling him. And he knew it. Stop playing games. Tyler snapped, frustration boiling over. He rushed in, throwing a flurry of kicks and punches with increasing desperation. Rebecca ducked. Pivoted. Slipped. Then, finally, she moved. Not an attack. Not yet. Just a single step forward. A challenge. Tyler flinched. The room caught its breath. You should have taken me seriously, she said, voice quiet but sharp. But you thought mocking me was easier. He charged. This time, full power. No restraint. He launched into his signature spinning kick, his pride. His best move. A technique that had floored countless students. But in that instant, Rebecca's entire posture changed. Her body shifted with impossible precision. She stepped in. Touched the edge of his leg mid-air, just the faintest push. Tyler spun off balance. Crashed. Flat on his back. The dojo fell silent. No breathing. No whispers. Just the sound of Tyler's body hitting the mat, and the unbearable stillness that followed. He lay there, stunned. Eyes wide. Disbelief written all over his face. Rebecca didn't gloat. She didn't raise her voice. She simply stepped forward, looked down at him, and said, "You said this was a demonstration. I hope everyone learned something." And with that, she turned away. The silence finally broke. A single clap. Then two. Then an eruption of applause, louder than anything the dojo had ever heard. Parents, students, even instructors on the sidelines stood up. Cheering. Crying. Clapping with everything they had. Tyler sat up slowly, still stunned. And as Rebecca walked back to Maya, her daughter ran into her arms, crying, laughing, shaking. "You were amazing," Maya whispered, her voice breaking. "Mom, who are you?" Rebecca pulled her close. And whispered back. "I'm the storm they never saw coming." The cheering in the dojo hadn't stopped. It swelled like a wave crashing over the years of injustice and quiet humiliation that had built beneath its surface. For the first time, students of color stood a little taller. Parents who had silently endured their children being overlooked or criticized now wept openly, overwhelmed by what they had just witnessed. But amidst the applause and stunned stares, one voice pierced the air. She barely touched him. That wasn't real skill. It was luck. It was a white father near the back, arms crossed, jaw tight. Tyler, still sitting on the mat, latched onto the excuse like a drowning man grabs driftwood. "Yes," he shouted, climbing to his feet, brushing himself off. "She just got lucky. Anyone can dodge. That wasn't martial arts, that was trickery." Rebecca turned around, slowly. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her presence was enough. Her eyes locked onto Tyler, and what she said next would not only silence the last of the doubters, it would crack the world wide open. "I didn't want to humiliate you, Tyler," she said calmly, "but you forced me to prove something I hoped I never had to." She took a slow breath, turning slightly to face the students and parents who now hung on to her every word. Maya stood at her side, tears still streaming down her face, her tiny hand gripping her mother's sleeve. "My name is Rebecca Johnson, but that's not who I used to be." She reached into her gym bag and pulled out a folded photo. Then, slowly, reverently, she unfolded the silver and black MMA championship belt she had tucked away for more than a decade. The crowd gasped. Murmurs erupted. "Wait, no way. I've seen that belt before. That can't be. Rebecca held up the belt, her voice unwavering. Years ago, I fought under the name Rebecca "Silent Storm" Williams. 3-time MMA world champion. I left that life behind after a personal tragedy, and never spoke of it again. Students began pulling out their phones. Screens lit up. Fingers typed furiously. Within seconds, the murmurs turned to full-on shock. Photos of Rebecca, younger, fierce-eyed, arms raised in victory. Videos of fights, lightning-fast movements, ruthless accuracy, the same calm she had displayed today. News headlines. Interviews. Victory after victory. She was real. She was legendary. One of the most respected female fighters in MMA history, who had disappeared without a trace. And now, she was standing right there. In Master Kim's dojo. Everyone turned to Tyler. And he looked broken. The color had drained from his face. His jaw hung slightly open. Sweat still clung to his forehead, not from exertion anymore, but from humiliation. He had mocked her. Taunted her. Challenged her. And been dismantled without her throwing a single punch. The same man who claimed to train champions had just been humiliated in front of his own students by a champion he had never even recognized. Rebecca looked directly at him. You judged me because I was quiet. Because I wore sweatpants. Because I'm a black woman who didn't come here looking to impress anyone. But here's the truth, Tyler. She stepped forward, not aggressive, but with the confidence of someone who knew exactly who she was. You taught these kids that strength comes from shouting. From dominating. From belittling others. But real strength? It's silent. It's respectful. It's earned through discipline and character. Not cruelty. Tyler lowered his gaze. The room was stone-cold silent. And then, from the edge of the mat, a small voice spoke. It was Jackson, the young black boy who'd been berated earlier in class. His voice was small but steady. You were wrong about her, coach. Then Maya added, louder, and you were wrong about all of us. Another student chimed in. Then another. And then it was everyone. We deserve better. You never treated us fairly. You made us feel like we didn't belong. The floodgates broke. What had started as a quiet protest turned into a chorus of truth. Tyler's arrogance crumbled in front of everyone. And all he could do was listen. Rebecca didn't gloat. She didn't twist the knife. Instead, she turned to the students and parents and said what needed to be said. This dojo can be better. It can be a place of real discipline. Of real respect. But that starts with holding each other accountable, even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Then she bowed. And the entire room bowed back. Parents. Students. Even instructors. Everyone, except Tyler. For a moment. But then, as if some last bit of decency had been awakened, Tyler took a slow, unsteady breath, and bowed. Low. Humbly. When he rose, his voice cracked with something unfamiliar, sincerity. I'm sorry, he said, barely above a whisper. But it was a start. And in that dojo, on that unforgettable day, something shifted forever. Tyler Griffin stood frozen, his chest rising and falling as if the air around him had thickened. His once pristine GI clung to his body, damp with sweat, his pride unraveling thread by thread in front of his students, his peers, and, most painfully, himself. The silence after his apology felt heavier than the moments before the match. Not because people didn't hear him, but because for the first time, they saw him. Really saw him. And not as the black belt instructor he had always projected himself to be. They saw a man who had been wrong. A man who had believed arrogance was strength, who measured skill by race, by noise, by force. and who, in the face of quiet defiance, had collapsed completely. Rebecca turned slowly to face him. Her voice was gentle, but it carried across every mat, every corner, every heart in the room. You didn't lose because I'm stronger than you, Tyler. You lost because you never once believed I could be. A ripple ran through the crowd. That sentence alone hit harder than any kick or punch. She wasn't there for revenge. She wasn't there to bask in glory. She was there to teach. And everyone, including Tyler, was learning. Rebecca continued, all these kids, especially the ones you singled out, the ones you thought weren't good enough, they've been fighting more than drills and forms. They've been fighting to be seen. To be valued. She turned to the group of students now gathered in a semicircle, their eyes wide and shining. You are strong. Not because of your skin. Not because of your voice. But because you keep going. Even when people expect you to quit. Maya stepped forward beside her mother. Her voice trembled slightly, but it rang with pride. She's not just my mom. She's the silent storm. Gasps echoed. One student let out a breathless, no way. And then, all at once, the room changed. Phones came out. Searches flooded the internet. Old fight videos. News articles. Championship footage. A younger Rebecca, fierce, composed, ruthless in the ring. The name, Silent Storm, trended instantly in the dojo. Oh my God, one student whispered, she's that Rebecca Williams? The MMA champion? 3-time world champ, another muttered, scrolling through a thumbnail of her lifting a blood-slicked belt with stone-cold eyes. Rebecca stood quietly as the realization washed over them. For years, they had walked past her, never noticing. Judging. Assuming. And now they stood in awe. Even parents who had once chuckled at Tyler's jokes now looked at her with reverence. Marissa, Jackson's mom, stepped forward, tears glistening in her eyes. You didn't just fight for your daughter today, she said softly. You fought for all of ours. Rebecca blinked, emotion threatening to rise. She smiled faintly and nodded. Thank you, she whispered. But I couldn't have done it without Maya. Her daughter leaned into her side, beaming with pride, her small fingers wrapping around her mother's hand. Tyler still hadn't moved much. He was pale. Exposed. But no longer defiant. The storm had passed, but its lesson lingered like thunder in the walls. Finally, he stepped forward. Slowly. Every step felt like an apology in itself. He looked at Rebecca. Not as a threat. Not as a rival. But as the teacher she truly was. I didn't just lose a match, he said, voice tight with emotion. I lost perspective. I let pride blind me. And I let my bias define me. He looked out at the students. I'm sorry to all of you. For every moment I made you feel small. Or lesser. Or invisible. His voice cracked. For years I thought I was shaping strong fighters. But I was only shaping my ego. Rebecca, thank you for humbling me. Rebecca nodded. Humility is where real growth begins. Then she extended her hand. Tyler looked at it, hesitated, and took it. The room exploded in applause once more, this time not just for the victory, but for what it meant. Redemption. Growth. Healing. Later that night, Rebecca sat on her small balcony, Maya curled beside her under a light blanket. The city lights twinkled like distant stars, but the air was calm. So, Maya said, does this mean you're coming out of retirement? Rebecca chuckled. No, she said. It means I finally made peace with it. Maya nodded sleepily. I think Marcus would have been proud. Rebecca looked up at the night sky. I hope so, she whispered. And for the first time in years, the silence around her felt full of peace, not pain. Word spread far beyond the walls of Master Kim's dojo. Within 24 hours, videos from students and parents, clips of the fight, the bow, Tyler's apology, and Rebecca's calm dismantling of injustice, went viral on social media. Black woman silences dojo after being mocked by instructor. Silent storm returns in most unexpected way. MMA champion stuns gym after being mocked as a joke. The headlines ran hot. Thousands of comments poured in, some from old fans who remembered Rebecca's dominance in the ring, others from young martial artists who had never heard of her but now hailed her as a legend. The footage showed a woman who hadn't thrown a single punch, yet delivered a knockout blow to bias and arrogance. Inside the dojo, everything had changed. Tyler Griffin, once unapproachable and feared, now moved through his classes with a different energy. Humility softened his posture. He no longer barked orders with contempt or played favorites with his students. He listened more. Asked questions. Thanked students openly for their effort, no matter their race, gender, or skill level. Some parents were skeptical at first. But over time, they saw the shift. The dojo that once felt cold and hierarchical had begun to feel like a place of growth again, for everyone. Tyler even held a special meeting just for the students of color and their parents. No cameras. No ego. Just acknowledgement, apology, and a promise, things would be different. And they were. Rebecca returned to the dojo, not as a fighter, but as a guest speaker. She didn't wear a GI. She didn't even mention the match. She stood in front of a room filled with students of all ages and said, "I'm not here to talk about fighting. I'm here to talk about strength. Real strength." She spoke about growing up in neighborhoods where people didn't believe in her. About being told that a girl, especially a black girl, had no place in a ring. About what it meant to win in silence, without anyone cheering, and still keep going. She shared Marcus's story. Not for sympathy, but to remind them that we all carry losses. And it's what we do with that pain that defines us. Then she looked directly at Jackson. "At some point in your life," she said, "someone will doubt you. They might have a belt. Or a title. Or a microphone. But their opinion does not define your worth." Jackson sat taller than he ever had. Students clapped. Tyler sat in the back. Listening. Learning. Writing every word down. Rebecca finished with a question. "Why do we train in martial arts?" Hands shot up. "To defend ourselves. To get strong. To win tournaments." She smiled. All true. But the greatest fights we face are rarely on mats. They're in how we treat people. In how we rise after injustice. And how we stand for others, especially when it's hard. She bowed. And every single person bowed back. Later that week, Rebecca and Maya walked through their neighborhood park, a soft evening sun casting warm light over the pavement. "Do you miss it?" Maya asked, sipping from her smoothie. Rebecca looked at her. "Fighting?" Maya nodded. Rebecca paused. "I miss parts of it. The discipline. The focus. The way it demanded all of me." "But?" Maya asked. "But. I don't miss the spotlight. Or the pressure. Or the pain I carried after Marcus." Maya looked thoughtful. "So why did you come back?" Rebecca smiled and wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "Because someone mocked what I'd buried. And I realized I wasn't just walking away from a ring. I was walking away from who I used to be. And maybe, that wasn't fair to you." Maya looked up. "I think you're the bravest person I've ever known." Rebecca stopped walking. She bent down, brushing a curl from Maya's face. "No. I'm just a woman who finally remembered that storms don't need permission to roar." And they kept walking, 2 generations of strength, side by side. Weeks passed, but the dojo would never be the same. Where once there had been rigid silence and quiet bias, there was now openness, reflection, and healing. Tyler Griffin had made good on his promises. He instituted anonymous student feedback. He brought in guest instructors from different disciplines and backgrounds. Most notably, he offered scholarships to underprivileged kids, something he had never even considered before. But more than policies, the energy had shifted. The students of color, Jackson, Maya, and others, no longer looked over their shoulders waiting for insults disguised as criticism. They began to lead drills. To teach. To believe. The dojo became what it should have always been, a place to grow. And at the center of that transformation, was Rebecca Johnson. She declined interview requests. She refused to sign sponsorship deals that came pouring in after her name resurfaced online. The media had gone wild over the story of a hidden MMA legend revealed in suburban dojo drama, but she wasn't interested in spectacle. She was interested in change. So she stayed local. Quiet. Present. And most importantly, true to herself. One Thursday afternoon, as Rebecca picked up Maya after class, a young black girl who had just started martial arts approached her timidly. Maybe 9 years old, small braids tied with pink bands, eyes full of wonder. "Excuse me, Miss Johnson," she said. "Are you really the silent storm?" Rebecca bent down, smiling. "I was. A long time ago." The girl's brow furrowed. "Are you still?" Rebecca looked at Maya, who grinned. Then she turned back to the little girl and said, "I'll always be. Because being silent storm isn't about fighting. It's about standing up when you're expected to sit down. It's about being calm when others want chaos. And it's about knowing exactly who you are, even when the world doubts you." The girl nodded slowly, then ran off, her small fists already mimicking punches. Rebecca and Maya shared a laugh. "You inspire everyone," Maya said, bumping her mother's shoulder. Rebecca gave a soft, wistful smile. "I just want you to grow up in a world where you don't have to prove yourself twice just to be seen once." "You already made that world better," Maya whispered. That night, after dinner, Rebecca sat on the edge of her bed and opened the old drawer one final time. Inside, the belt sat waiting. She didn't pick it up. She simply looked at it, and this time, there was no pain. No regret. Only gratitude. Because what once represented pressure and tragedy now symbolized something greater. Legacy. A reminder of who she was, who she became, and who she helped others believe they could be. As Maya slept soundly, her face serene, Rebecca stood in the doorway and whispered. "Marcus. I did it. She's going to be just fine." And with that, she closed the door to the past. Not to forget it. But to walk forward, freer than she'd ever been. The next morning, students lined up at the dojo as usual. Some sparred. Some tied belts. Some chatted about the upcoming tournament. Tyler stood at the front with a changed demeanor, more grounded, more thoughtful. He bowed to each student as they entered. When Rebecca walked in with Maya, he bowed deeper than ever. Not out of formality. But out of respect. She bowed back, then took a seat in the back corner, as always. Only this time, the whispers that followed weren't of judgment. They were of admiration. "There goes the woman who silenced the whole gym without ever needing to raise her voice. There goes Silent Storm." And in that quiet, there was thunder. Sometimes, true strength isn't shown in how hard you hit, but in how long you stay silent until it's time to speak. Rebecca Johnson didn't fight to prove her skill, she fought to prove that every person, no matter their appearance, deserves dignity and respect. And in doing so, she reminded an entire community what real power looks like. True strength isn't loud. It listens. It leads. And when the moment comes, it never misses. If this story moved you, subscribe to True Echo for more powerful, emotional tales that reveal the truth beneath the surface. Share this video to spread Rebecca's message. And drop a comment below. Have you ever been underestimated, only to rise when no one expected it? We'd love to hear your story.